Tonight I've been converting a Springbrook that I've had for quite a long time, quite a few years. This was a very desirable set back in the day, and I got all the sticks wired and everything, and I got as far as doing the meter, and I thought, we've never done a video on the expanded scale meters that we tend to use. And the idea of an expanded scale is, you would think that a meter ideally for a, say, a 9-volt battery would read like 0 to 10 volts on the scale. But what that means is that your battery is flat at 7. If it's a 9-volt battery, at 7 volts it's flat. So anything from 7 volts downwards is just a waste of time. So you're reading the top, say, quarter of the meter between full and flat. The idea of an expanded scale meter is that flat is right down here, so it's 7 volts or whatever, and full is right over here. So you get the full range of the meter over the range that you can actually use the battery. So I do this with a 6.2 volt zener. And the resistor in series with the meter. You would need the resistor in series with the meter anyway, so it's just one extra component, the zener. What you do is you choose a zener of the minimum voltage you want the meter to start reading at. In my case that's 6.2 volts, 3.1 volts per cell is about as low as you would dare go with a LiFo or a lipo, and then you work out what would be the full scale deflection, say 10 volts, minus the zener voltage. So 10 volts at this end of the scale minus 6.2 at that end of the scale is 3.8. So we've got 3.8 volts. We know it's a 100 microamp meter, so we can work out from 3.8 volts at 100 microamps we can work out the resistor needed to limit the current. It's just Ohm's Law, straightforward Ohm's Law. Okay, hopefully you can see the meter and the power supply display as well. So at the moment it's 5.9 volts, there's no reading whatsoever on the meter. As I slowly bring this up, 6, 6.1, 6.2, see the meter starts to move, 6.3, 6.4, 6.5, 6.6, 6.7, 8, 9, 7 volts. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 7.9, 8, 8.1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 9 volts, and we're almost on full scale at 9 volts. About there, about 9.3 is full scale, which suits the 2S life batteries perfectly. It means that we're not bothering to measure anything below 6 volts because that's completely flat. You would stop long before then, and you're not measuring anything over 9 volts, which there would never be anyway. So that expanded scale meter is just spot on for the job. Okay, let's draw this expanded scale meter. Here's the meter. Negative side there, here's your battery. Negative of the battery goes to the negative of the meter. Positive of the battery goes through the on-off switch and through a zener diode, which is the 6.2 volt zener, through a resistor to the positive side of the meter. Now, you think the diode might be the wrong way around, this conventional current going the wrong way through the diode, but it's in reverse breakdown that you get the zener effect, so that's quite right. So that's a 6.2 volt zener, and the idea of the expanded scale meter is that you will read say 10 volts up here and 6.2 at the bottom. 6.2 is the lower end is determined by the voltage of the zener, the higher end is determined by the resistor, which we'll come to in a second. Okay, so this is let's say that's a 10 volt battery. So we drop 6.2 volts across the zener, so that leaves 3.8 volts across the meter and resistor combination. 3.8 volts. This is a 100 microamp meter. So simple Ohm's law, R equals V over I. We've got V is 3.8 volts, I is 0.1 of a milliamp, 100 microamps, 0.1, so that's 38 k ohms. So that resistor would be 38 k ohms, and that would give you a meter which reads from 6.2 volts to 10 volts, and that's your expanded scale. The Springbrooks were a lovely set back in the day, really high quality. One thing I do remember about them is they were incredibly heavy, really heavy, because they had a mains transformer and a huge battery, and the stick units are really chunky. They take up most of the internal space, but that'll make a lovely conversion. There you go, a Springbrook from, I don't know, around 1968, 70 maybe, with a expanded scale voltmeter. Cheers.